Hi and welcome to the Bundesliga edition on Tete-a-Tete by Fresxco Media, and I have with me Shreyas here. How are you doing?
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen. The only German I know is Eins because clearly that's the only thing that matters in the Bundesliga, coming first. I mean, my God. Uh, coming on to the big bad in Bundesliga, Bayern Munich, the most successful team in Bundesliga history.
And the European champions.
Of course, they just won the treble. And I think Bundesliga this calendar year has taken a very prominent role, of course, with the fact that the pandemic had affected football worldwide. But Bundesliga, interestingly, were the first ones to restart. And I think that was a very crucial part for football's near future. And because of the fact that the Bundesliga restart was a phenomenal success, solely due to the fact that not a single game after restart by Bundesliga was disrupted by by too many players in a team getting COVID or staff members getting COVID. I think it was a phenomenal success and it paved the way for other restarts to happen, like the Premier League, La Liga, Syria. And I think that was very, very crucial for this year in order for football to finish on a high. Because a lot of people, I don't know if they realize this, is that if the Premier League, for example, did not finish their season, they would have had to pay back a lot of money to the broadcasters, and that would have taken a big chunk of their revenue this year. So, as it is, there's been a financial impact in football. The financial impact might have been much more severe if that were to have happened.
I agree with you. I agree with you in the sense that the Bundesliga coming back on the 16th of May this year was a fantastic bit of news for the world of football. And it just gave footballers, clubs, fans the hope that football would be back in full strength, or at least in some sense after the enforced COVID lockdown. In terms of how it is almost become a pioneer in that sense, the Bundesliga, in terms of how clubs work and how the leagues have restarted. Of course, the decision to restart the Bundesliga again wasn't just because they had to finish the Bundesliga. It was more because of financial reasons and clubs being very dependent on commercial revenue. Like we'll come on to with the 50+1 rule. Um, the model that the clubs in the Bundesliga play with is a lot more dependent on revenue than you could say the Premier League or La Liga and so on. So
So when you say fan revenue, when you say revenue, are you talking about in terms of like fans when it comes to the tickets that the
yeah, of
fans
course,
buy in
gate
and
receipts
yeah,
matter a lot. I mean, of course, gate receipts matter, and for some Bundesliga clubs, like for example, Freiburg and Werder Bremen, these aren't clubs that are big enough to command a lot of commercial revenue. So for them, gate
yeah,
receipts are all the more important. And for
yes.
clubs like this, of course, the Bundesliga and the DFB, which is the German Football Association, organized a fund that will help these clubs through the crisis, even the second and third divisions. But of course, overall, it was great that Bundesliga was the first league to come back in the middle of May.
Of course, once the restart had happened, we all know what happened. I guess it was a relatively tight title race this year compared to the last 2 years where you could say Bayern Munich ran away with it. Even last year with Niko Kovac, I think they performed better under Niko Kovac in the 2018-19 season than the 2019-22 season. We all know what happened. Hansi Flick took over, and it was Hansi Flick, I think, revolutionized this team. He had an immediate impact in the team, and we know what way they went on to achieve this season. They won the treble. They won of course, they won the Champions League final against PSG, and this season Borussia Dortmund and RB Leipzig put the most amount of pressure on Bayern Munich in the title race, but unfortunately they had come up short. And that seems to be the recurring theme of Borussia Dortmund in the last 4 5 years. So we will come back to Borussia Dortmund and this whole decade as such and what they've been about. But I would like to touch upon Bayern Munich as a club. Bayern Munich as a club, I mean, the first thing that you think of Bayern Munich that comes to my mind at least is absolute dominance in Bundesliga. Here's a stat. Bayern Munich have won 29 league titles and the Bundesliga has been only around since 1962. Care to guess who has the second highest number of titles?
Um, Probably Mönchengladbach.
Yes, and it's five. Borussia
Well,
Mönchengladbach and Borussia Dortmund have five
it's
apiece.
a no
So I think
contest,
that
isn't
just
it?
says
It's
a
an
lot.
absolute no
No
contest in the
con,
Bundesliga. We
absolute
enter
no
it. We
contest. Yeah,
enter year upon year in the Bundesliga, And we see the might of Bayern Munich. This is a club that has 7, 8 times the commercial revenue of its nearest competitor, which is Borussia Dortmund. And if you look at the difference in scale between how Bayern operate and how a team like SC Freiburg operate, they're completely different
Yes.
worlds. And there's no competition in the
Yes.
sense that, yeah, you might have a freak season where, like 2018-19, Bayern didn't play as well, but they still won the league.
Hmm.
So essentially, unless a superpower or a big outside bit of influence enters the Bundesliga, we don't see Bayern getting stopped. And of course, we're going to come on to Borussia Dortmund, and I personally feel that this could be the best chance for Borussia Dortmund to actually change the title in their
This
direction.
season?
Yeah, of course.
No, this
I'll
season.
provide my reasons in a bit, but in terms of how Bayern are looking for or looking to build upon the success last season, we mustn't forget that again. Until November, they're pretty poor until they sack Niko Kovac, and in a sense, it's kind of like it almost feels like a last dance for many of the Bayern players, for Thomas Muller, for Lewandowski. I just don't see them, competing the same level that they did this season because I just feel they have a big X marked on their heads, and I think clubs are going to come for them in
I
Europe.
just think that X has been marked upon Bayern Munich as a club in Germany for such a long time. I just think they're used to it, and I just don't agree with that because I just think personally, right now, looking at the blend of youth that's coming into the team, the players around the age of 20 to 23, along with the stalwarts like Thomas Muller, Robert Lewandowski, I think they're primed again to just push on for the next 2, 3 years and kind of retain the title. At least at the minimum, Bayern should be winning the next 2, 3 league titles in a row.
I think that's a bare minimum, isn't it? The requirements are to win the domestic title at the very
100%.
least. And
100%.
it's interesting to see what they do with their squad. They've obviously added Leroy Sané to the ranks, a fantastic signing for
Hmm.
them.
Yes.
Thiago's chosen to join Liverpool, which opens up a position in midfield for the talented Frenchman Michael Cuisance. We could see him making a big breakthrough this season. The questions remain in defense, however, because David Alaba is unsure of whether he wants to stay at Bayern long term. They've made the big signing, 72 million euros spent on Lucas Hernandez. He still hasn't, lived up to the potential. They found Alfonso Davis in the middle of last season, and he turned out to be one of the best left backs in Europe, considering last year's form.
I mean, he has usurped Lucas Hernandez, right? I
I
think he
don't think
has
there's any
taken
way
Lucas
back
Hernandez.
at left back for Lucas Hernandez. The only way I could see it is if he gets more starting berths this season and probably Alaba leaves the club at the end of the season. Again, you have the questions about whether Jerome Boateng can actually persist at this level for another season and whether they'll have to bring in another right back so that Benjamin Pavard can move into the centre back role. A lot of questions to be answered if you look into it a year or two down the line. But at the moment, like you said, it seems like they're a very settled unit. It's only a question of whether the other teams can match them. We're talking about the Dortmunds, the Leipzigs, which we'll come on to in a bit.
The thing I'm most worried about is the fact that Hansi Flick, of course, I think it's very easy for people to see that they have been employing a high line of defense,
Very risky,
and
extremely
we
risky
saw
back line.
Bayern Munich being exploited by PSG in the final a couple of times, as well as Lyon in the semi-finals due to their usage of the high line press. So I think Hansi Flick might have a decision to be made there, and of course I think he needs to make the decision of whether to play Joshua Kimmich at right back or in midfield, allowing Benjamin Pavard, like you said, to move back into central defense. And yes, I think it's going to be interesting to see whether Jerome Boateng kind of keeps up the performances that he had, especially since restart. Because a lot of people started to write him off at the start of the season. I don't know if you remember, because there was talks about him leaving the club, Thomas Muller leaving the club, and obviously this is during the Niko Kovac rule. So I think Hansi Flick needs to be given a lot of credit, especially when it has come to his man management. Because clearly he has got these experienced pros on his side and has got them performing to a level that they've been used to for the last couple of years. So credit to him.
I've been wanting to talk about Borussia Dortmund. The last 10 minutes or so, I've really wanted to expand upon why I think they have the best chance of winning the Bundesliga
Please.
title. And you've already stuck your reservations on it, but here are my reasons, right? This is a team you could say that has a very good mix of youth and experience.
Okay.
You have a back five which is very experienced. You have the likes of Mats Hummels in center defense. You have Lucas Piszczek who's leaving the club at the end of the season, a cult hero for many
Huh.
operating in defense. Roman Burki is a solid keeper. You have Thomas Munier, tried and tested right wing back. playing for them. You have Rafael Guerrero, who had a fantastic second half of the season. And of course, you have great midfield stalwarts. You have Emre Can, who joined the club in January, Axel Witsel, who's been a revelation since joining the club. And in front of them is the main question. Now, you look at the talent that they have, those front five positions. You think about the other teams in the Bundesliga, they probably have the best attacking five
Hmm.
alongside Bayern Munich, of course.
Hmm.
But the question remains as to whether Marco Reus can keep fit, whether Jadon Sancho can keep fit. Can they get the best out of Julian Brandt like they did in the after the restart? And if they do, if they tick all these boxes and they keep Marco Reus and Axel Witsel fit, who were missing for most of the last campaign, I really think they can win the league. And I'm not just saying it because I love the Dortmund sides under Klopp and I've always supported them since. I genuinely feel they have a chance of it. What do you think?
Um, See, of course, I think it's kind of become a trend that Borussia Dortmund has become everybody's second team. I think a lot of it also has to do with the atmosphere and the aura that surrounds this club. We, of course, know the famous yellow wall at Westfalenstadion, which has become such a big thing all over the world that people kind of travel to
Iconic.
Germany. Iconic, absolutely iconic. People travel there just to experience the intimidating yet arousing nature of that stadium. And I think, yeah, it's become a thing for people to have Dortmund as their second team, that team that they kind of support on the side, like when they watch the Bundesliga games or if they're participating in the Champions League. And I do like this team. I mean, Jadon Sancho, I don't think I don't think most people expected him to burst onto the stage like he did once he moved to Borussia Dortmund from Manchester City. Clearly, City have lost an absolute gem. He has just picked on season after season. I think, if I'm not wrong, he scored 20 goals and gave 20 assists last season, which is phenomenal returns for a 21-year-old. And of course, they have the younger Hazard, Thorgan Hazard, who's playing off the left, and he's been quite successful playing in this team. And we all know who they bought during the January transfer window, who is on his way to becoming one of the premier names in world football, Erling Braut Haaland. He has just absolutely burst onto the stage this season, especially before this with Salzburg. And yeah, like you said, you've touched upon the team, and I do think the team is very good. But my main problem with Borussia Dortmund is that they just seem to not have the depth in squad year after year. I think their starting 11, their main 11, is absolutely exceptional in the sense that on their day they can perform against any given team. But I do think that,
But just have a look at the
hmm,
bench, will you? I think this season is very interesting because they have a lot of youngsters warming the bench, and these are not, the youngsters that have come in for the first season. You have the likes of Giovanni Reina, who played the latter end of last season. You have the new signing, Rainier Jesus, the Brazilian, on the bench. You have the likes of Mahmoud Dahoud, who's probably a starter for other Bundesliga clubs apart from Bayern and
he
Dortmund,
has
of
been
course.
highly rated
He's on
off
the
though.
bench as well.
That's for sure. Yes.
Yeah, and it just begs the question as to whether, the like you said, the main 11 is pretty fantastic if you look at the prospects of them if they play week in, week out. Marco Reus hasn't been fit for more than 20 games in the last 4 or 5 seasons. I haven't
Fantastic
seen him
player,
play.
by the way. Yeah.
I mean, he is again a player that everyone loves, but we need to see him playing a full season. And if he plays a full season, we know that the value he has to that team. And yeah,
But that's the thing, right? But that's the thing. Like the depth is there in the sense that they do have players who clearly have talent. Jude Bellingham, who has joined Borussia Dortmund as well, so they do have that depth in squad. But when I say depth in squad in sense, do the do these players have the experience to come on and see out a game, or to come on and chase the game and score that one or two goals and actually win those games where they're not exactly playing well, but then they still somehow find a way to win it, and that's what title winning teams do. And I just look at it and I'm thinking Bayern Munich also have incredible depth in the squad, but at the same time the squad has title winning experience, and I think that's going to be key when it comes to the season. Because my personal opinion is that more and more the way football has changed, it becomes a bit more difficult to win the league than to win a knockout competition, because of the fact that you have to perform over a stretch of 38 games and play each team
but in
twice.
Bundesliga, it's
Of
only
course, in the
34 games,
Bundesliga,
isn't
it's
it?
it's only 34 because they have 18 teams there. Yeah, but yeah, I just do think that the experience is gonna count at the end of the day for Bayern Munich, and I just don't see any way that they don't retain the title this season. But of course, it's going to be very interesting to see what Borussia Dortmund do, because like I say, they play free flowing football, easy on the eye football. And I think for any neutral out there who wants to watch Bundesliga football, I think you just need to start watching Borussia Dortmund games and the way that they attack and press. I think you just want to see Bundesliga football at the end of the day
Well,
after that.
yeah, I think we should stress upon the fact that Lucien Favre, the manager, he hasn't won the title in the 2 years that he's been at the helm. He's obviously produced very attacking sides, but again, he's in the last year of his contract. We don't know when they get to January whether the players will want to play for him or what his mindset is. But again, we'll see what Dortmund do. Now coming on to Rasenballsport Leipzig. Do you know what Rasenballsport means by any chance?
Rasenball sport. Uh, isn't it the reason that they put Rasenball sport? Because of course they're going to put Die Rotten Bull, which is Red Bull in
Yeah,
German.
it's a, it's a very creative or rather
It's a
uncreative way
very
of getting
tricky
around the
thing.
rules.
Yes, of course. RB Leipzig. What is the first thing that does come to your mind though when you think about RB Leipzig?
Rotten bull.
Rotten Bull. And why is it? Why do you say Rotten Bull?
Because they do not respect the 50 plus 1 rule.
50 plus 1 rule. Coming to the 50 plus
What
1
is the
rule.
50 plus 1 rule? Why are we talking about the
I
50
mean,
plus
I
1 rule?
think the 50 plus 1 rule has been one of the biggest attractive points for Bundesliga when it comes to football viewers. Um, Football in Germany is the biggest sport that there is. A lot of these towns in Germany have their own football teams, and we need to remember that the Bundesliga was formed relatively uh, late compared to the other big leagues like the English league, the Spanish league, or the Serie A. And the 50 plus 1 rule basically what it states is that the members of said clubs, in order to get a license to play in the Bundesliga or in the Bundesliga 2, they need to make sure that the members of the club retain the voting rights, retain the majority voting power in the club, as in 50 plus 1, and that there can be no external investor who has majority of the voting power in the club. So do you care to expand upon that for the viewers out here?
It's quite interesting because the rule allows the fans to have a big say. They're almost like the shareholders of the club, and you cannot take them off their perch unless, of course, an owner has had an interest in the club for more than 20 years, which is why you have a historic case of Bayer Leverkusen being owned by Bayer Pharmaceuticals, if I'm not mistaken, and Wolfsburg owned by Volkswagen, which formed the club in the intention of their employees going to represent the company on the football pitch. So these are two clubs that have obtained the 50 plus 1 exemption, and essentially the companies are bankrolling the club.
Just to touch upon the fact that the reason why these two teams kind of got the exemption is that in German football there is a rule that if you are not an outside investor but you're still a conglomerate that you've invested in the club, you need to be with the club for over at least a period of 20 years in order to show your commitment to the area. Because when it comes to owning or when it comes to investing in the club, you just don't invest in the club and the staff, you invest within the community, within the town that the club is a part of. So that's the reason why.
I was just going to come on to
Yeah.
Hoffenheim there, but like you mentioned, investing in the city. I've heard from a few German friends of mine that Leipzig does not invest in the city, so it's
Surprise,
quite
surprise.
contentious. But anyway, moving on to Hoffenheim, which we wanted to pool this together with Leipzig because they're kind of the same case in the sense that fans don't like them, and in the case of Hoffenheim, it stems from their owner Dietmar Hopp, who also founded, by the way, he also founded SAP, the global company, which bankrolls millions and millions and billions a year in revenue. Um, he used to play for the youth academy at Hoffenheim and decided to buy the club essentially before 1998. Now, before 98, Bundesliga clubs were run as a not for profit entity. Then after 98, he retained that ownership, of course. And since he completed 20 years, like you mentioned, he became, he could get exemption from the 50 plus 1 rule. Now, what irritates fans more than the fact that he's got that, that 50 plus 1 exemption is the fact that he has regularly riled up the fans, opposition fans we're talking about. Borussia Dortmund fans were banned from Hoffenheim's ground for I think 2 seasons. For me, it's a very interesting way of going about the future of football for Germany. They've restated that they want to continue the 50 plus 1, while a lot of people see it as something that is meant for back in the day and it's not really representative of modern football. What do you think about that?
I've heard both sides of the argument. Like, if you listen to people who are pro 50 plus 1 rule, and these are especially German supporters, they say that this is the identity of German football. Because in German football, first and foremost, of course, fans everywhere are the DNA of clubs. But in German football, it seems just that much more than other places. And in Germany, the price tickets are at such extraordinary cheap prices when you compare it to the prices in the Premier League or the La Liga or the Serie A or even La Liga for that matter. Um, it's a very important facet for it because at the end of the day, they feel that it's right for every person in German football in Germany to be able to go and watch a game, sit and have a beer and enjoy the football of the team that they support without worrying about the financial constraints. And they feel that if there were to be outside investment coming in, then the aim of the clubs would start to become profit oriented. So then they will start increasing the prices. And then if you do see that the increase of prices for one club increases, and then it just generates even more revenue, which kind of leads to more investment in the team and hence better performances, other teams would start to follow suit. And that's the main contentious point for German football fans. And at the same time, there are people also in Germany who kind of feel that it has been a very outdated method and that there needs to be a certain amount of foreign investment put into the club in order to increase the spending power and the financial power of the clubs in German football in order to ensure that they can compete at the very top with other European superpowers as well. And my personal opinion of that is that the charm of German football may be lost, especially right now when you look at RB Leipzig. RB Leipzig, they came in the semi-finals of the Champions League, and any other season, like take for example in our previous podcast, we spoke about League One. For the first time, two French teams finishing in the semi-finals, playing in the semi-finals. Was that not a fantastic achievement for France? And was it not widely heralded by the French press that both teams made it to the semi-finals? Could you not see the drastic difference when it came to the media in Germany, where they praised Bayern Munich and they said that they're
They
going to
don't
go for the
recognize.
treble?
They just don't recognize RB Leipzig as a club. It's
Yeah,
almost like
and
Red Bull is what they see and not RB Leipzig.
I mean, coming back to the Dietmar Hopp situation in on Feb 2020, we saw what happened between Bayern Munich and Hoffenheim. Bayern Munich unfurled an offensive banner aimed at Hoffenheim owner Dietmar Hopp, and it resulted in the game to be suspended with less than 15 minutes remaining. So that became a huge contentious issue. So you can see that fans of other clubs do not like what's happening with that because they identify with German football as being, the basis of it being the 50 plus 1 rule, where the fans are the most important thing and it should not change. But at the same time, credit needs to be given because RB Leipzig have made it to the Champions League semi-final. And what they have been in existence for what, a matter of 10, 11 years. So I think credit needs to be given there. But at the same time, I just think it's a very contentious debate and a contentious topic. And I just don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, like you mentioned, fans are so important in the Bundesliga, and even more so important this weekend because we have 20% capacity at the Mönchengladbach and the Bremen game this weekend. Great news. To hear our predictions on what we look in the coming season, just stay tuned after the short break. Just before we start our predictions for the Bundesliga this season, just wanted to ask you a quick question. What do Josh Sargent, Jadon Sancho, Jan Fiete Arp, Ozan Kabak, Paulinho have in common? The answer is very close to home.
When you say close to, do you mean the fact that they all played in the Under 17
Of
World Cup?
course, in India. Well, they were in front of our eyes. Why didn't we see them?
I swear. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but when it was announced that the Under 17 FIFA World Cup was going to take place in our very own country, I was pretty excited about it. But then I was looking around and I was like, okay, people didn't even know that the Under 17 World Cup was happening. And it's my dream to see the World Cup being hosted in India. Can you just imagine the absolute scenes? But yeah, I guess that's like a whole different topic for a
Of
different
course,
day.
we still
Um,
dream on.
yeah.
Anyway, coming back to a more serious note about what we think will transpire for certain teams in the Bundesliga. We've spoken about Bayern and Dortmund extensively. What do you think about Leipzig's prospects having sold Timo Werner to Chelsea, and of course they've lost Patrick Schick as well in the front line, but they've managed to keep hold of Diogo Meccano, and I've loved the way their midfield is flowing. You know, you have Sabitzer, you have Nkunku, and pretty nice to watch. I mean, you look at Tyler Adams as well, the American, who is a very versatile player who shined with the winner against Atletico
They've also
Madrid.
signed Angelino
Angelino,
on a
fantastic
permanent
signing again.
transfer.
What do you think? Where are they going to finish this season? Do you think they're going to challenge along with Dortmund and Bayern for the title, or do you see them slipping because of
Um,
no Werner?
I do think that they'll finish in the top four. I'm pretty certain they'll finish in the top four. And when you look at this team, the way that they have also built their team and squad as well, I wouldn't be surprised if they have one or two breakout youngsters this season as well. They've almost designed the club in order to ensure that there's at least one breakout star each season. And it's going to be interesting to see whether Dio Upamecano kind of stays in RB Leipzig by the end of the transfer window, which we know is not yet, which is open for at least for the next 2 weeks minimum. And yeah, Manchester United have been linked with Dio Upamecano for quite some time now, and it's going to be a extremely potent partnership with Upamecano and Harry Maguire. Fingers crossed it doesn't. Hope personally, I hope it doesn't
I
happen,
don't think it'll happen.
but I hope it doesn't happen. But that'd be a fantastic team with Upamecano, who's an exceptional centre back right now. We obviously saw what he did in the Champions League. And they have Ibrahim Konate as well, who I think has kind of flown under the radar because he has been quite exceptional as well for RB Leipzig this season. And of course, they have Marcel Sabitzer, who has been quietly going around doing his business in the center of midfield. And Christopher Nkunku, who has kind of broken on to the stage this season because if you look at it, he was kind of cast away by PSG. Unai Emery, when he was at Arsenal during his ill-fated spell, oh, I cannot forget that. But when he wanted to buy Nkunku, a lot of English media people were like, "Who's this player? Like, why do you want him?" Clearly, and that was one of the few things Unai Emery got right because he's been quite good for RB Leipzig this season, and of course Danny Olmo is there as well, and I'm just excited to see the youngsters that they employ in the starting 11 this season because I want to see a couple of more breakout players in that team. And we all know Julian Nagelsmann, whose reputation has been growing season after season. And let's not forget, I think he's still mid 30s. He's not even 38,
33,
37,
if I'm not
30,
mistaken.
33. My God. So they, of course, have a young squad along with a young manager who's got bright, new, exciting, bold attacking ideas for the football that they want to employ. So, yeah, RB Leipzig, just as a individual standpoint of view for those German fans who are listening right now, it's I think they're going to have a very good season in German football.
The team that finished fourth last season, briefly, what do you think Mönchengladbach can achieve this season?
Mönchengladbach, one of the sleeping giants, you can say, in Bundesliga because of the fact that they have the second highest number of titles at five apiece with Borussia Dortmund. Um, they do have a solid team. I would say my favorite player in this team has to be Marcus Thuram. He has been exceptional. His immense blend of dribbling, pace, and power, cutting off from the left. He has been an absolute beast along with
Along with, I think, along with Alisson Player, I think
player.
the two of them have
Yes.
formed the most lethal front two partnership in the Bundesliga. And I think it was after the restart because I remember they were leading the table until December, I think, last season. And it was only after the injury to one of them, I think it was Thuram, who was first injured, then Player got injured subsequently, that caused a big dent in their attacking hopes. But then I think defensively and in terms of the midfield, they have a very solid and settled lineup. They're in the Champions League again, so they'll have to balance that with the league. But just on pure quality on and the fact that the other teams around them have weakened in the sense, I see them finishing the top four. My pick, my surprise package for this season is going to be Hertha Berlin.
Hertha Berlin.
A club again which is looking to expand and kind of break into the top four in the next couple of seasons. They, of course, they had the circus regarding the managers last season when Jurgen Klinsmann was only at the helm for I think 70 days, and they had to bring back the veteran of Bundesliga management, Bruno Labbadia, very nice character to watch in the touchline. But they have made some important acquisitions. They've signed Lucas Toussaint from Lyon. If you've ever followed Lyon the last couple of years, he's been pivotal for them, and it's a very kind of under the radar signing. They have Matthias Cunha, who they signed from RB Leipzig, who just watching him after the restart, he was fantastic. Anytime the ball came to his feet, something was going to happen. Christoph Piatek, the AC Milan freak, has signed a permanent deal is there as well, and they've even added the likes of John Cordoba, who was good for FC Cologne last season.
I mean, Christoph Piatek coming to Hertha Berlin. Of course, we all know he kind of burst onto the scene quite nicely, and then it kind of tailed off when he was at AC Milan. So it's going to be interesting to see whether he can kind of recapture the form that had him being coveted by the likes of Tottenham Hotspur also as one time. Coming to another team that has been under a little bit of scrutiny, not of course not as much compared to Hoffenheim and RB Leipzig, Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, we know how Bayer Leverkusen are. They are kind of the seasoned veterans when it comes to finishing around the third and fourth position, playing in the Champions League and then sometimes in the European League, but always around the sixth, seventh, minimum to sixth to third position that they kind of fill. And what are your thoughts on Bayer Leverkusen this
I,
season?
I think it'll be a very good season if they manage to finish around seventh or sixth or seventh, because they've lost Kai Havertz, they've lost Kevin Folland, who are their key players when it comes to scoring goals. They still have a lot of talents like Leon Bailey, Musa Diaby, Edmund
They signed
Tapsoba, who emerged in
Patrick
defense.
Sheik this season. He's
They've
going to be
added Patrick
fantastic.
Schick, yes, they've added Patrick Schick as well to the ranks. I think sixth and seventh is, agreeable in the sense that the impact of losing Havertz is that the other players have to step up, and these are young players that you're asking to step up. You even have the 17-year-old, I think, Florian Wirtz, who scored against Bayern on his debut. He's another, the next Kai Havertz they bud him up to be in Leverkusen. But again, I think around sixth or seventh is where I see them finishing.
Sixth and seventh. Oh, I think they might just do a little bit better than that. I do see them competing for maybe in fifth or maybe even fourth. But yes, it's going to be a difficult season for the teams below the first two, three teams, which I think are going to be Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, and I'm going to go with RB Leipzig. I think beneath that, it's going to be very interesting to see because it's not going to be much of a difference between the fourth position and the eighth position, in my opinion.
You're a big advocate of Bayern holding the title this season, and like I've mentioned, genuinely feel Dortmund have a big chance. So I'm going to go with the bold prediction that Borussia Dortmund are going to win the Bundesliga this season, and subsequently, I think Sancho, Erling Haaland, Giovanni Reina, um, maybe even Thorgan Hazard and Julian Brandt. I think four or five of them will leave the club. That's my prediction. I think Bayern are going to implode halfway through the season. I think there's going to be questions about the lack of motivation, having conquered everything the past season. And of course, after that, I see maybe Leipzig, of course, keeping their run of finishing the top four. And my surprise package would be Hertha Berlin for fourth spot. What is your top four?
Hertha Berlin for fourth spot. Give me also the potential standout breakthrough player of the season for Bundesliga.
I'm going to say Matthias Cunha for Hertha Berlin.
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, I think the team is going to do well, and I think he's going to be the main, the driving force of the progression of the team. I still feel he's a mercurial talent. The way he can do things on the ball when he gets it is quite special when we're talking about the Bundesliga. So I think he's going to be, one of the players to watch out for. And maybe he would get a transfer to a bigger club next season.
Interesting. Listen, viewers, you heard it first from Shreyas. Remember that. Remember that. And for me, I'm gonna go with Bayern Munich. I just can't see past them, and
You're
I
so
would love
boring.
it.
You're so
I
boring.
know
They do it
what
every
to do.
year.
What to do. I do. Listen, as an Arsenal fan, I've been at the end of several nice beatings from them, and I just think that they are masters at knowing when to change and chop their squad up in a fantastic way. And I think that they know how to maintain their position at the top. Of course, I would love to see Borussia Dortmund doing well this season. I do hope they win it, but I just don't see it being past Bayern Munich retaining the title this season. I think it will be Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund. I think RB Leipzig will finish third. I think Julian Nagelsmann is going to be a fantastic manager. I think he's going to go to the absolute top. And I'm going to go for Borussia Mönchengladbach in fourth. For me, I think Marcus Thuram, he's not exactly a youngster anymore as such, but I think Marcus Thuram is going to stand out this season. I think he's going to attract the interest of bigger clubs, and I think he's going to make a move at the end of the 2021 season. I do expect a lot of big things from him, because to see that blend of physicality, height, and brilliant technical and dribbling skills that he has, I think it's a very, very deadly combination, and I do expect quite a lot of things from him.
So the Bundesliga is back, and we've previewed, what our surprise predictions are in many ways of who's going to finish in the pecking out in the Bundesliga. Looking forward to this weekend, which is the weekend where Bundesliga returns. Of course, by the time you hear this on Friday, Bayern will be facing Schalke tonight, and on Saturday we have the return of VfB Stuttgart back to the Bundesliga after one season out. We also have the blockbuster game, that is Borussia Dortmund against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Promises to be a lot of goals in that, doesn't it?
This will be a fantastic game to watch.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of goals in that one. Then, of course, on Sunday, we have a couple of games. We have the Leipzig Mainz game, which again should be a processional victory for RB Leipzig. And we round off the game week with Wolfsburg facing Bayer Leverkusen at home. Hope that you enjoyed listening to us. We hope that you got, a bit more of excitement in your belly that Bundesliga is back.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to our views on this whole podcast. And
Yeah, as usual, your feedback has been fantastic from those who've listened, and we hope that you continue to provide us with this feedback so that we can keep getting better and better as the weeks progress. For now, it's Auf Wiedersehen, and we hope to see you next week. Goodbye.